I've been reading and catching up on the opening statements. I've been reading the reports. I've even listened back to some of the podcasts and the interviews over the last while of residents and of residents in Middleton, and also residents of Owenacurra and family members. And I don't think I've seen a community rally around mental health service the way I've seen up in Middleton. It's very clear that the people in Owenacurra are part of the community of Middleton. Like, they're not apart from the community of Middleton, they're actually a part of it. And we've talked about integrated living and being integrated and part of the community. This is one of the best examples I think I've seen. I heard one guy talking on the radio how he goes down to the local coffee shop with his friend and meets his friend there. No, I have no idea whether his friend is another resident in Owenacurra or is a resident in Middleton. It's none of my business. But he goes there into Middleton, meets his friend for a cup of coffee on a regular basis. That's his routine. The residents in there, they have their families, they have their neighbours, they have their routines, like anybody else in society. And I think sometimes we need to just put the flesh on the bones of this. They're not statistics, they're real people that this is going to impact. And this closure of this facility will have a detrimental impact on the people that are currently residing in Owenacurra, and also on the staff in Owenacurra, and also on the wider community in Middleton. And I'm making a couple of charges, and this is not directed at you, Mr. Fitzgerald, or anybody else at the HSE, but to the HSE in general. Like, just even reading through the reports, right, to me, the HSE are complicit and are responsible for allowing Owenacurra to get to the state of how run down it is now. So we're in the situation that we find ourselves. Like you mentioned in the opening statement that the HSE, have I heard, the HSE immediate priority is the welfare of the 19 residents in the centre. Can I ask, where's that priority over the years when a lack of investment by the HSE in the building has allowed it to get to the state that we're in now, and has caused the situation that we're in now? I was going to put it into context, because these are people, these are real people, and if this was a resident living in a house whose landlord neglected to maintain their home, then the resident would have recourse through a number of agencies, including the residential tenancy boards. So in this case, the HSE, in my opinion, is the neglectful landlord. So where is the residents' recourse? How do the residents go about recourse on this? And all the evidence I've heard, and this is on the other side of things, all the evidence I've heard is that the service that's provided in Owenacurra is a really, really good service. If it wasn't a really good service, there wouldn't be this fight here for people to stay there and to continue to use these services. So, Chair, I have a question on the building, and then I have a couple of questions then on assessments then, but I'll ask the question on the building. So, I think I've answered, but I'd ask you to answer again. Has the HSE explored every option available to allow the residents to remain in their current homes? And I want you to ask it in relation to, because you mentioned the future use of the site. Like, was any consideration being given to build a new building on the current site and allow the residents to remain in situ and upgrade the building that they're in now at the moment, just to keep them in a safe space in the meantime? So, was there any consideration to use the current site to build a new building rather than moving these residents out? That's the first question.
So, to answer your question, we certainly have looked and considered any option that would be there. And as I said, our earlier thought process around this, as we were before we got into kind of the advanced planning on it, was actually to renovate the building. And when you started to work in terms of looking at how you might actually go about that, that is what has led us to the more extensive reports that we have got, and the best advice, best professional advice, to say you are not going to be able to invest in a building that can be guaranteed to bring you up to... Sorry,
Chair, that's not the question I asked. The question I asked was any consideration being given to build a new building on the site in Owenacurra, rather than upgrading the existing one?
Well, yeah, the existing site, if you were to use it, is very it's a very narrow site. Your colleagues who are in the particular area, Deputy, will know the actual site itself. It's quite a limited site. There's a lot of roadways and right-of-ways around the actual building itself. It's a very tight internal site. So the site itself, in terms of the capacity to build in it, would have to be, is very measured really, I suppose is the simplest way of saying it. So the capacity of actually knocking that building and rebuilding the same type of building on that site would be very, very challenging if at all possible, to be honest.
Okay, and I think you asked the question, answered the question already, but I'll ask again, has there been any cost analysis done on the cost of upgrading the current building?
There has, and I have undertaken to provide to the committee some detail with regards to costs. I didn't have it to hand here earlier on from one of your colleagues.
I'll echo Deputy Sherlock on that as well, in relation to coming to a meeting like this and not having that cost there is really, really disappointing for the HSE, I must say. Okay, Chair, I'll move on. I just have one more question, and it's just in relation to the Camberwell assessment of need that was mentioned in the report. Like, I just want to ask a question, like, is this the first time this was used? And the reason I ask this is because this is used as a comprehensive assessment of people with severe mental health problems. And one of the indicators in the Camberwell assessments of needs is to show deficiencies in accommodation that residents and people are living in, and if that has a detrimental impact on their mental health and also a detrimental impact on their safety. So if it was used in the past, I want to know why was it not acted on and why are we at the current situation that we're in now. And if it was not used in the past, can I ask why? Because this is a standard bearer of assessments for people that have acute mental health needs.
So I'll ask Dr. O'Brien maybe that she might comment in relation to the assessment process.
Thank you, Dr. Ward. So the Camberwell assessment need is one of the rehabilitation assessment tools that can be used, and there was ongoing multidisciplinary assessments going on with the individuals in the Owenacurra Centre. You're quite right that the Camberwell tool indicates whether a need is met or unmet. And while the individuals are residing in the Owenacurra Centre, a certain proportion of people's needs are indeed met. There are a number of individuals that it was always on the plan that these individuals were planning to move to more independent accommodation, some stepping to high support hostels, others going into community living. So in terms of whether a need is met, it's very much individual, determining, whether that person has all their needs met at that point in time. But we also need to enable individuals to live the best life that they can. And some people are very clearly requesting that they live in a more independent setting going forward.
And I get that, and I think that autonomy is really, really welcome. But can I ask a question? During the recent undertaking of the Camberwell assessments and needs, did that indicate that some of the residents that are currently living in Owenacurra, that the needs were met?
Yes, that is correct. So it did indicate, yes.
Okay, so the HSE's assessment tool is saying that the needs are met in Owenacurra, yet the HSE look like they are going to move people out of Owenacurra. So to me, that doesn't make sense. So listen, Chair, that's all I have, and I'd like to thank you for allowing me to come in there. So good morning.